Hello and welcome to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Peter Houston, and this season Esther Thorpe, Chris Sutcliffe and I are exploring the people and the products powering publishing, both through this podcast and in our adjacent weekly newsletter, which you can sign up for at voices.media. We're delighted to have Blue Conic as sponsors for this season of the Publisher Podcast and the Publisher newsletter. Blue Conic is the customer data operating system that makes your data work harder, so you don't have to. Whether it's capturing valuable audience insights or activating them with precision, the possibilities are endless with Blue Conic's all-in-one platform. Learn more at blueconic.com, where data is for doing. This week I'm thrilled to be speaking with Kat Craddock, Editor-in-Chief and CEO of Saveur magazine, a 30-year-old publishing brand that's returned to print this year after a 4-year hiatus. Kat's announcement that Saveur would be returning to print is one of the best and most honest explanations I've seen on how new print is different. We dig into those differences and unpick print's positive relationship with digital. But first I asked Kat to describe Saveur for anyone who hasn't come across it.
Saveur is a recently independent 30-year-old legacy food and travel magazine. We publish global culinary content in print, online, and newsletters via social for a wide audience of home cooks and armchair travelers. We're also very popular and beloved by the food and beverage industry as well. And I'm actually a food and beverage industry vet. I used to be a pastry chef and a bread baker for 10 years before I moved over to the media side of things.
Oh, I'm definitely coming back to that transition. Newly independent, that's an interesting phrase. Tell me more about that.
Yes, it's been an exciting year and a half. I actually started at Saveur 10 years ago, but I took it over from our previous owner early last year. So purchased it back.
When you joined, who was publishing Saveur?
It was published by Bonnier, a Swedish media company. Our editor-in-chief was Adam Sachs. Our in-house publisher was Greg Gatto, and it was a great team. And it was right around when Instagram started, so a lot of things started changing really quickly shortly after I started with the brand.
And then, guess you stopped printing about 4 or 5 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah. So Bonnier sold us to another company during the pandemic, along with several other of our sister brands at the time. And the company that bought us, which is now Recurrent Media, they did away with our print magazine in 2020. A lot of things were changing and shifting in the business at that time with the pandemic, and the way that we were publishing shifted a bit, and it didn't make sense for them to continue printing our regular print magazine. We did do a couple. We did a re-edition of our cookbook. We did some SIPs over the years under Recurrent, but we weren't doing the normal kind of periodical program.
So then, what happened that made you decide, okay, I want to buy this from Recurrent?
Well, the last time we were sold, I kind of wondered if it was possible. And when Bonnier sold us to Recurrent, I kind of paid attention to what was going on and wondered if a brand can buy a publication, or if a company can buy a publication, can a person buy a publication? And the answer then was no, at least not me. But I asked a lot of questions, paid a lot of attention to the logistics of how one brand might be peeled out of another parent company, and that gave me a lot more kind of information and understanding about what would go into that. And then, in 2022 or so, it was starting to become clear that maybe Saveur was a bit of an odd fit for what Recurrent was doing at the time. They invested a lot into our redesigning our website, built back up from the contractions of the pandemic, but it still didn't quite seem to fit into what they were doing over there. So I love Saveur. I grew up reading it. It has a lot to do with why I ended up going to culinary school and working in the food industry. And I was, we'd seen a lot of publications shuttering and, getting kind of stripped for parts and sold off. And I didn't want to see that happen to our brand. So I approached the leadership over there and asked if they'd be open to me trying to take it over, and they said yes. So it all happened very quickly after that.
And you said, "Oh no, what now?" What was the process? Did you have to go find financing or?
Yeah, and I did some sniffing around for financing. I ended up in a very fortunate situation in that I have a business partner who is a silent partner,
Yeah.
and he is my investor. So that's where we're at. We own it. The plan is not to flip it. We're really invested in making sure that this is a legacy publication that continues to be what we want it to be.
Listening to you talk about it doesn't sound like you're in it for, well, I'm not sure anyone's in magazines for the money
No,
anymore, but it doesn't sound like a get rich quick scheme.
no, absolutely not. That's, yeah, I don't think that's realistic for anybody.
So you've got money from your investor, you've got a plan. Was that plan always to go back into print?
Yeah, as soon as we stopped printing, we kept hearing from our readers how much they missed it and how sad it was to see it go. Everybody that was working on the brand was sad to see it go, and I had the sense that something that was so loved could work, and people, we could find enough people to buy the thing to make the thing. I don't expect it to be the most profitable part of the business ever, but we can make a great magazine that is the expression of our brand that we want it to be. And it doesn't need to be crazy high volume. We can make enough of them that they sell and it pays for itself.
So that's interesting because that brings us to this idea of right
Mm-hmm.
sizing. The idea that in the past, magazine publishing, particularly in the States, actually, was just such a scale game. We sell subscriptions for $12 a year and
Or give them away for free.
yeah, exactly. And it's all to feed this rapacious advertising ecosystem. The statement that you put out when you first said you were bringing back print absolutely nailed us. It was like, we're not doing that anymore. We can't work at scale like that anymore. Was that always in the business plan? It was, we just cannot do this anymore. We're being an independent magazine. We're going to print as many copies as we sell. End of. There's no dreams of world domination in that sense from a print point of view.
Yeah, I would say that it kind of gradually became the plan. I mean, when I said about breaking the brand out, I had to figure a lot of those logistics out along the way, and I didn't know what it was going to cost to go to the printer and pick the paper and have everything shipped and what postage rates were going to look like as they change year to year. And having worked in the food business, I understand an industry where people expect things to be cheaper than what it costs to make them. There's definitely been some pushback about, how much our magazines cost now, and we're making far fewer of them than we used to because we know that people that used to get them for 99 cents with their cable bill aren't necessarily going to want to cough up $25 an issue for what we're doing now. But, I think enough people understand that the reason it went away in the first place is because it wasn't sustainable and because we weren't, meeting our costs. And I think that presenting our print magazine as more of the premium expression of the brand and having scarcity be the point all just sort of made sense.
I love that idea of scarcity rather than scale. I think that's perfect. Where you're at now, you've got what we might, in a weird way, we might consider traditional magazine publishing operation, which is all digital stuff, like you mentioned Instagram already, but you've got a Zinio digital edition, you got the website, you got newsletters, you got all this stuff going on. But then you've got print, and it's twice a year, I guess, at the moment. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
But you still talk about print first? And I just want to try and get my head around, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, I mean, we see our print product as like the couture of our brand. It's for the super fans. It's the most expensive. It's for people who know about us or who happen upon us and are really excited about what we're doing. It's not expensive because we want to be really exclusive. It's expensive because it costs a lot to make the thing. But we've also put together an archive of 8,000 recipes over the past 30 years that, as far as I'm concerned, should be available to anybody. And I don't want to put that content behind a paywall. Print is our marketing tool. It establishes our brand, and it's a place for us to continue doing beautiful long form storytelling and commission original photography and print it on beautiful paper where it can shine and not be interrupted by ads. And it's an experience for people that really appreciate that. And anyone that wants it, I want to be able to have access to that. And that's why we're putting those issues on Zinio. That's why we're trying to make sure it's available in libraries as well. But, we also need to be able to have scale on some level to pay our bills. And, advertising is important. And print advertising is not a major part of our revenue, but digital advertising is. And we can reach a lot of eyeballs through our newsletters and through our website. And people around the world are coming to us for our recipe content all the time. So, I think that kind of feeding many beasts in this business is how we can balance it. Again, the goal of selling the print magazine is not to bring in a king's ransom. It's to establish what Saveur is, and really kind of lean into our values and our priorities.
Is it like a manifesto in that sense? If you really want to understand Saveur, look at the print. Oh, it's almost like a flag in the sand.
Yeah, absolutely. A flag in the sand. And it's really liberating to have a space that is not at all beholden to SEO. It doesn't matter if people are searching for this yet because they haven't heard about it. We're uncovering these stories that are exciting and new, and that sense of discovery, I think, is what has always made people love Saveur, is, hearing about people and foods and places that they didn't know they cared about until we brought them into the spotlight.
I love that idea of relaunching print because you don't want to deal with SEO, which of course you still do, but it's a nice thought. How do all those things work together? The print's out there and it is what it is and it's beautiful, but you've also got all these other beasts to feed.
Yeah, it's a lot of spinning plates.
Do they work together in the sense of you're repurposing content either from print or from the web into newsletters? Is it like this whole idea of just circulating and repurposing content?
Not so much. And there is some overlap with what runs in print and what runs online. I am committed to running all of our recipes online and making all of our recipe content available. So any recipe you see in print is eventually going to end up online. But there are a lot of things that run in print that are going to be print only, and you really need to get the magazine to read them or enjoy them. That is to incentivize people buying it in the first place, of course, but also, I think that there are going to be certain things that don't translate to web. If we're investing in a big, beautiful photo essay, and the point is that these images are running huge on beautiful paper, I don't want everyone looking at it on their phone. That wasn't the point to begin with. And we might tease it on social or something like that, but there are going to be things that are only in print, and that's for people who get it and want to get it. A lot of our service content or our really seasonal recipe content or tutorial content, that's running digitally because that's how people use that information. And we're continuing to run digital only content too. We're running destination guides and recipe packages and a lot of cookbook coverage every month online. A lot of new content that's going live there. We have plenty of content to keep us busy beyond the 2 issues that we're publishing every year. But yeah, it's a lot of spinning plates, a lot of, we don't have a separate digital team and print team. Everyone's kind of working across everything to find the right home for the types of stories that we want to tell and the types of partners and advertisers that we want to work with.
Print, I'm guessing the aim there is obviously to make a profit, but no, it's not going to be a huge profit. Is most of your revenue then digital?
Most of our revenue comes from larger packages that bring in digital branded content, often events, newsletter, social, and then often also a print component. So that's kind of the, exclusive markup is something might run in print first or might have a print component or a back cover component that then gets rolled out digitally in different ways. And then sometimes we're weaving event programming into that as well. And there's a lot of interest in events right now. And I've kind of noticed that and heard that from publications across the industry, certainly not food exclusive.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that in-person events or is it online?
Yeah, all in-person events. We're food people. We love to throw a party. It takes a lot of time and energy and sort of feels like we're planning weddings all the time sometimes. It's just like a lot of logistics go into it, but our team really enjoys that sort of experience. And especially now that we're kind of in this we're back moment, it's not just about selling in the advertisers. It's about going and reconnecting with our readers in different parts of the country too, and kind of a grassroots community building effort.
So when you went out there with that "we're back" message, as a publishing guy, I thought you were really honest. You basically said, we're not doing scale anymore. It costs money to make this thing, and as a reader, you're going to have to pay more for it than you've ever paid before. But you're going to get this, and this, which I thought was unbelievably honest, because not everyone's, as a publisher, going to tell that story. They're going to say, hey, we're back and we're great and give us your money. What was the reaction to that? What was the communications that you had back?
Our super fans seemed to be overjoyed, and there's been so much support, and people from people who've subscribed for 30 years or been reading us for 30 years, and also people that worked on the brand over the decades. We've had our founding editor-in-chief on a panel with us for our launch party last week, and people who have written and edited Saveur over the decades have come back to work on this with us. Just about everybody that I hired after we broke off are all Saveur veterans. We're very fortunate that we have this legacy and people that have been loving this brand for a long time that want to see it succeed. There was also some price resistance for sure, and the Facebook comment sections remind me every day that we're selling something for a lot more money than we used to, and we're really trying to make what we are offering for free clear and available. We are trying to expand the ways that people can access our magazine, like I mentioned, in libraries and via Zinio and other kind of digital extensions of the brand. The idea is to encourage people to look for this magazine and purchase. So I'm not trying to make it available for free through as many all-you-can-read services as possible. It is important to me that it's available in libraries.
On price objections, people pushing back on your cover price or a subscription. How do you overcome that objection? How do you get past that?
A lot of folks in the food and beverage industry who are huge supporters of us are probably not being paid very much either. I understand that. And, we are trying to communicate what goes into this. The fact that the magazine went away was because it wasn't financially sustainable. And I understand that the magazine isn't for everybody. We want to get it to a spot where maybe we can hopefully someday bring the price down a little bit more or make it more widely available. But I also don't want to devalue all the work that goes into it. And I want to be able to pay our interns and pay our contributors, and there was an industry that operated off of, in a lot of ways, free labor or underpaid labor for a long time, much like the restaurant industry. And I think that on some level there are some people that are just not going to come back because that price is going to be a hurdle. But houses and eggs cost more now too, like there's only so much that we can do to kind of offset inevitable increases of prices across all industries.
I saw a Bloomberg piece the other day that's basically describes magazines now as a luxury product. What do you think of that concept?
I think reading a magazine feels very luxurious now, and I think that being able to invest in the materials and making sure that they do feel luxurious and worth that cost is important. It has been important to us. And, I suspected that most of our readers were going to be folks that had read Saveur in the past. Our older readers, people who've been reading us for decades, and I know a lot of our early subscribers have definitely been from that community. But I've spoken to a lot of journalism students as well, and design students and photography students who also seem to really be craving that sort of physical experience. And I don't think that it's just nostalgia from people that experience this sort of media in the past that's going to drive a revival in print. I think there is an appetite in younger readers as well. And we see that in, vinyl record sales bouncing back as well, and I think that we didn't lose painting as an art form when photography came on the scene. And magazines are not necessarily going to sustain as this mass communication method, but I think that they will continue to be appreciated for their more luxurious properties, I guess.
I think there's an honesty there around it that maybe wasn't there when you were, as you said, getting it free with your cable subscription. There's an honesty about the fact that you're making a product and it has to be paid for. How do you feel about this whole print revival thing? People talk, there's articles in Bloomberg about magazines, there's articles in the New York Times about the Mountain Gazette and all these indie titles doing really well. You guys get mentioned in those articles all the time. It's sort of proof of the fact that there's this revival. How do you feel about all that?
It's really exciting and validating. I hope it continues. And a lot of the indie publications, like Mountain Gazette is a great example, Summit Journal, and there's a whole kind of community of indie outdoor brands right now that are doing some very cool things as well. What I think is really nice and exciting is a lot of the publishers and EICs of these brands, we've kind of banded together and are supporting each other as best we can. And not all of us necessarily came up in the industry the same way. Like I mentioned, I came from the restaurant industry, or some folks are just kind of taking over these brands because they're enthusiasts for the subject matter. Being able to kind of compare notes and figure out fulfillment systems and fill the gaps and sort of reinvent the way these operations work together has been a huge support.
I heard you were talking on a Full Bleed podcast, and you said that one of the things that sort of taking over Saveur gave you the chance to rethink print. Where are you at with that? Are you still rethinking it? Is that an ongoing process?
Yeah, we have a very cool printer called Meridian in Rhode Island, where I grew up, and they do magazines, but they're not a mass periodical printer. They print art books and vinyl record sleeves and stationery and menus for local restaurants and all sorts of things. And their capabilities are, since they're small and since they're doing a lot of different types of printing, we're always I'm on press with them for every print run. So we're always talking about, okay, what's cool that we can do for the next issue? Was there scratch and sniff? Like, is there, can we put some recipe cards in there? Or what can we do with the trim from the cover stock so it's not going to waste? It, can add value for our print subscribers that, maybe we slip a bookmark into the issue because we're mailing in rigid envelopes now and we don't need to worry about losing any ephemera that gets included like that. I don't think that's ever going to stop, and we're going to keep rethinking it and leaning into that form as much as we can to kind of impress upon our readers what's special about print and what can't you do digitally.
It's strange that those opportunities are really only coming to you because you're operating at a much smaller scale.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we could never do this at the old numbers.
But in a sense, that's what makes it special, right? It's what makes it different, and it's not just these, I don't know, the weeklies that get pumped out and put on a newsstand and then pulped and then you start all over again. It's a very different project, a very different process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's much more like making a book, and the reason that we chose the paper that we did and the reason that we're laminating the cover and a lot of the choices that we made in designing and redesigning the physical magazine came down to the fact that we wanted this on people's coffee table for 6 months. We wanted people to keep it for 30 years. And I have all of my Saveur archives behind me right now, and I hear from readers all the time that they've saved every issue as well. And I don't want to make something that, that the pages are going to be falling out of in a month.
I think I heard you talk about that you thought about, changing the size or changing the way it was put together. And then you thought, oh no, because people have already got 30 odd years worth of copies on their shelf.
Yeah, we use the same printer as Fangoria, the horror publication, and they've been printing since the 70s. And I was talking to their publisher about this as well, and he was saying that they tried changing the trim size, and there's a lot of collectors in that community, and it really upset people. So I understand, and I'm a little kind of obsessive compulsive too. And when I saw all of the magazines lined up on my bookshelf, I knew that it would drive people crazy because it would drive me crazy if they didn't line up.
That brings me to you as someone who came out of the industry to work in that magazine and now run that magazine. How does that influence the way you run things, the fact that you actually came out of the food industry?
I mean, I mostly worked for small independent restaurants. And by the time I moved to New York, I worked for a couple of larger restaurant groups. But for the most part, those were small indie businesses. And everybody wore many hats, and it was nobody's job to polish glasses or take out the trash at the end of the night. It was everyone's job to do that. And I think having a bit of that mindset has done, and most of our team honestly has some restaurant experience as well. And they all kind of have that all hands on deck hustle. It can be really distracting sometimes, and we're always kind of trying to regularly do a reset and make sure everybody has the time and the focus that they need to, when it's time to sit down and edit a feature or write a feature, you can't be also spinning 10 plates at once. So we do our best to balance that, but I think that having that kind of multitasking startup mentality has been really important for us to be able to do what we've done over the past year with a much smaller team. And we don't have shared services across 10 different departments.
I'm just trying to get my head around Recurrent and the idea that you're a part of this huge organization and then you're not. And it's got to bring all sorts of benefits, but it's also got to bring some challenges that you you don't have those services available to you. Was that one of the things that you had to think really hard before you did it, or did you do it and then think about it?
A little bit of the latter. It's like, oh, I'm really going to spend this much of my life reading contracts now. Is that true? It definitely makes me appreciate those departments a lot more, and everything takes more time than you think it should. As a result, we've kind of had to dial back. We would love to be doing a ton of video and a podcast every week and a lot more multimedia, and eventually we'll kind of ease back into doing some more of that type of thing, but we can't do as many things as well as we want to do them as maybe we could have when we had a lot more operational support. But that's okay. We can make a really great print magazine and people are enjoying it, and we can make great written content online, and once those machines are humming along, then we can focus on expanding beyond that.
So it's almost like it's back to basics in a weird way.
100%.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. Okay, my last question for you. What other publishers do you think are doing this properly? They've reintroduced print, or they're still in print. What are they doing right, and who are they?
I'm very inspired by Mike at Mountain Gazette. I think what he's doing has been really exciting, and he's been very good at communicating why they're operating the way they're operating, and I think has set a great example for a lot of other indie publishers out there. I was super excited to hear that The Atlantic was going back up to increasing their cadence as well, 12 issues a year. I'm pretty new to this industry, so I'm not going to pretend to understand, the intricacies of how large publishers are doing this, or how publishers in other subjects are doing this. But from where I'm standing, I'm very inspired by both of those publications and what they've got going on right now.
A huge thank you to Kat for taking the time to speak with me. Don't forget, we have a full write-up of the key learnings from this interview on voices.media. Or if you've signed up for the publisher newsletter, dropping straight into your inbox. If you've not signed up, go to voices.media and sort it out. This season is sponsored by BlueConic, the operating system that puts data into action for marketing and growth doers. The industry-first solution empowers doers with an unmatched range of capabilities to access relevant customer data, create resonant customer experiences, and drive maximum returns for their businesses. Learn more at blueconic.com, where data is for doing. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the people and the products powering publishing's future. Until then, keep up with all things Media Voices by following us on LinkedIn and subscribing to that weekly newsletter over on voices.media.